My name is Adelaide Morgan. I'm 32 years old, single, child-free, and I hold a Master of Business Administration with a specialization in data analytics, a degree I had to claw my way through to afford. I am now the founder and CEO of Veridian Analytics, a burgeoning strategic consulting firm in Austin, Texas. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? But to my family, those titles were just empty noise, far less compelling than the dramatic size of my younger sister, Beatrice. Beatrice, or B, was a chaotic planet orbiting the sun of her own self-interest, and by some gravitational miracle, she'd pulled my parents right into her orbit. B was a freelance artist, which is a romantic way of describing a 28-year-old with a collection of half-finished oil paintings and a history of changing college majors more often than her socks. My parents called her a sensitive soul. I called it romanticized irresponsibility. The unfairness in my family wasn't a sudden hurricane, it was a persistent, drizzling rain that soaked through the very fabric of my life. It was there in the Christmas presents. B would get the latest DSLR camera to nurture her creativity, while I'd get a set of glass Tupperware because Addie's so practical. It was there in the phone calls. B's having trouble with her rent again. The poor thing, my mother would lament, just days after I'd mentioned a promotion at work. My news was treated like a weather report, skimmed over and forgotten, while B's latest drama was breaking news, requiring a full panel discussion. Through my undergrad years, I worked 3 jobs simultaneously to cover tuition and the rent on a tiny apartment in a Cleveland suburb. My nights were a blur of burnt coffee, the rustle of textbook pages, and the low-grade hum of anxiety over upcoming bills. When I graduated with honors, what I received was a pat on the back and a, "That's great, honey. Now you can get a stable job and help out your sister." There was no party. No acknowledgement of the all-nighters I'd pulled. My success wasn't an achievement to be celebrated, it was a new resource to be allocated to B's ongoing instability. Conversely, when B decided to drop her philosophy major for sculpture, my parents threw a dinner party, praising her courage to follow her passion. They paid for expensive art classes, bought her blocks of clay and tools she used exactly once before declaring her muse had fled. Every one of B's failures was cushioned by a thick mattress of sympathy and cash, while every one of my successes was met with the expectation of a dutiful daughter. And then there was the apartment in Cleveland. It was the first space I ever truly called my own, a testament bought with sweat, tears, and an ungodly amount of instant ramen. I painted the beige walls myself. I assembled every piece of IKEA furniture with my own 2 hands. It wasn't big, it wasn't fancy, but it was my sanctuary, tangible proof of the independence I had fought for. I gave my parents a spare key, naively telling them it was just in case of an emergency. I didn't realize that in their dictionary, emergency was synonymous with whenever B feels like it. The pain wasn't a single, deep cut. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, every single day. It was my father calling, not to ask how I was, but to see if I could float B alone for a while. It was my mother sending me articles about oldest daughter syndrome, implying my exhaustion was a psychological condition rather than the direct result of carrying the weight of 2 people. They weren't bad people. They were simply parents who had chosen one child to love and one child to rely on. They loved B with all their hearts, and they loved my reliability. They never actually loved me. The breaking point arrived on a damp Sunday evening in October. I had just come home from a 12-hour shift at the data analytics firm where I worked, trying to juggle my job with the final chapters of my master's thesis. I called home, my heart thrumming with a rare brand of excitement. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice trembling with a cocktail of exhaustion and hope. "I have amazing news. I got into the MBA program at the University of Texas at Austin. And I even got a partial scholarship." Silence. On the other end of the line, I could hear the tinny audio of some loud game show. Then, my father's voice, flat. "Austin? That's a long way away. It's expensive down there. Are you sure that's a wise risk? Your job now is so stable." My mother cut in, her voice thick with concern, but not for me. "Addie, honey, that's nice, but Bee's landlord is threatening to evict her again. She's in a real crisis. We were thinking, maybe she could come stay with you for a while. Your apartment has that spare room, right? In that moment, something inside me shattered. Not with a bang, but with a silent, profound crack that was utterly irreparable. They hadn't even heard the word scholarship. They didn't ask about the school, about my future. The biggest news of my life, a turning point I had bled for, was instantly drowned out by another rinse and repeat drama starring my sister. My apartment, my sanctuary, was once again being viewed as a convenient solution for Bee's irresponsibility. I took a deep, steadying breath, the cold air of the room filling my lungs. Yeah, I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. I'll think about it. And I did think. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the middle of my living room, staring at the beige walls I'd painted, the furniture I'd built. I realized I could not continue to live in the shadow of this thankless expectation. I couldn't keep being the reliable older sister while my own soul was eroding. I didn't want their approval anymore. I wanted to be free. The decision was made in silence, but it was forged in steel. I was going to Austin. I was going to finish my MBA. I was going to build a life that no one could take for granted. And I was going to do it all without them. I would disappear from their lives, not with a screaming match, but with a quiet, protracted silence. I would let my absence say everything my words never could. The plan was meticulous, cold, and efficient like a data analysis project. Step 1. Accept the admission and the scholarship. Step 2. Resign from my job in Cleveland, giving a vague reason about a new opportunity. Step 3. Hire a moving company to pack and ship every single thing I own to a storage unit in Austin. Step 4. Sell my car and buy a one-way plane ticket. Step 5. The most critical. Give my landlord my notice. I sent a short, bland email to my parents, one I knew they'd skim. Going to be making some big changes with work and living situation soon. Will update you later. I hit send, and it felt like severing an invisible chain that had bound me for 30 years. My last weeks in Cleveland were a masterclass in secrecy. By day, I was the diligent employee, wrapping up projects and smiling through half-hearted goodbyes. By night, I was the silent archivist of my own life, packing it all into cardboard boxes. Every book, every piece of clothing, every photograph was a farewell. I worked with a terrifying focus, fueled by a new kind of energy, the promise of imminent freedom. During this time, I found my true allies, my chosen family. There was Dr. Alistair Finch, the elderly professor who wrote my letter of recommendation. When I confided in him, he didn't seem surprised. He just nodded, his eyes full of understanding. "Adelaide," he said, "my dear, your talent is an eagle trapped in a canary's cage. Go fly. And don't you dare look back." It was the permission I'd never gotten from my own father. And there was Chloe, my best friend from college. She was the only person who knew the entire plan. She helped me pack, brought me pizza on late nights, and held me tight as I cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief. "You're doing the right thing, Addie," she whispered. "You owe this to yourself." The final surge of strength came from my grandmother's memory box. She was the only one in my family who had ever truly seen me. While my parents were busy placating a screaming bee, my grandmother would quietly teach me to play chess, to read the stock market charts in the newspaper. "Your brain is your greatest asset, Adelaide," she'd told me. "Don't ever let anyone treat it like a commodity." Inside her box, I found a delicate silver brooch. I sold it without a second thought. The money wasn't much, but it was symbolic. I was using the legacy of the one person who believed in me to fund my own escape. All the while, the calls from my family continued, feeling like echoes from another dimension. "Addie, have you thought about Bee's living situation?" My mother would ask, a hint of impatience in her voice. "Still weighing my options, Mom," I'd say, as I watched movers carry my sofa out the door. "What's with you lately? You're slow to text back. Is something wrong?" My father grumbled. "Just busy with work, Dad," I'd reply, signing the paperwork for my now empty apartment. The last call I took in Cleveland was from Bea herself. "Hey, Addie," she cooed. "So Mom says I can crash with you. Is your place near any cool art cafes? I'm trying to find a new space to get my vibe back." I took a breath, the emptiness of the apartment now mirroring the emptiness I used to feel inside. "I'll get back to you, Bea," I said, and hung up. It was the last lie. The day I left, Cleveland was a blanket of gray. But as the plane ascended, breaking through the thick cloud cover, the sky opened up into a brilliant, dazzling blue. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was flying toward the sun, not just running from the shadows. Austin was a rebirth. The MBA program was brutal, but I dove into it with a ferocious hunger. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who spoke my language, the language of ambition, data, and strategy. My professors challenged me, my classmates competed with me, and I thrived. The fear of failure and burnout was still there, but now it was fuel, not a burden. I managed my time with military precision, turning discipline into an art form. The financial struggle was real. Even with a scholarship, Austin's cost of living was steep. I tutored undergrads in data analytics, took on freelance market research projects, and lived in a studio apartment smaller than my old place in Cleveland. There were weeks I survived on ramen and peanut butter. There were moments I'd look at my 2-digit bank balance and feel a wave of panic. But every time I felt close to breaking, I would remember the sound of my mother's voice, asking about Bea's rent. And the panic would harden into pure, unadulterated resolve. The old pain became my most reliable anchor. In an entrepreneurship class, an idea sparked. Instead of just analyzing data for huge corporations, why not offer data-driven strategy consulting to the small and medium-sized businesses that couldn't afford the big firms? The idea, born from my own struggles as a freelancer, became the bedrock of Viridian Analytics. I presented my business plan at a university competition. I didn't win, but Dr. Finch, who happened to be a guest judge, pulled me aside afterward. "Adelaide," he said, "the prize is irrelevant. Your plan has bones. It's real. It's needed. Go do it. And here's the number of an angel investor I know. He has a soft spot for hungry underdogs." That call changed everything. The investor, an older man named Marcus Thorne, saw in me not just a good business plan, but a relentless grit and an uncompromising work ethic. He provided the seed capital, not a huge amount, but enough for me to lease a tiny office and hire 2 interns. Viridian Analytics was born without fanfare, but it grew with tenacity. Our first client was a local coffee shop chain. I worked 18-hour days, analyzing every transaction, every customer review, to help them optimize their menu and marketing. Their revenue grew 20% in the first quarter with us. Word of mouth did the rest. One client became 5, then 10, then 15. Within 2 years of graduating, I had gone from a broke MBA student to the CEO of a company generating a 6-figure revenue. I moved into a beautiful loft apartment with a view of the Austin skyline. I had a team of brilliant employees who respected me for my vision and my hustle. I had built a network of friends and mentors who celebrated my wins and propped me up during my losses. I had created my own chosen family. And my biological family? They existed in a parallel universe, completely oblivious. I kept contact to a bare minimum. Short, superficial calls. I never mentioned my company. I never mentioned my new apartment. I never mentioned my real life. To them, I was still Addie, the practical daughter working some boring office job in a faraway city. Their lack of interest had become the perfect camouflage for my metamorphosis. They didn't ask, so I didn't tell. And then, 6 months ago, the fateful call came. "Addie, sweetie." My mother's voice was unusually cheerful. "I have the most wonderful news. Bea has decided to move back to Cleveland. She says the vibe there is better for her artistic flow. And we thought, it's perfect. She can move into your apartment, it'll save her money, and you two can look after each other." I was silent, the wine glass in my hand perfectly still. My apartment. The one I had vacated nearly 3 years ago. "Mom," I said slowly, "I don't live in that apartment anymore." Oh, don't be silly, she chuckled. Of course you do. Your father and I still have the spare key you gave us. Don't worry, Bea will be a great roommate. She promised to help with cleaning. Occasionally. A strange, cold clarity washed over me. They truly had no idea. My email, my vague updates, all of it had vanished into the vacuum of their indifference. They had constructed an entire reality for me without ever consulting the main character. And that's when the idea sparked. A wicked, deliciously satisfying idea. I wouldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. I would let them discover it for themselves. I would let reality deliver the blow I never could. Okay, Mom, I said, my voice syrupy sweet. When are you all getting there? This weekend. Your father and I are driving her down. We're going to surprise her. Oh, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. I'm sure it's going to be a very big surprise. Which brings us back to this moment. I'm sitting in my home office in Austin, looking out at the glittering city through a floor-to-ceiling window. On my laptop screen, my team is celebrating over a video call. We've just landed our biggest contract yet, a 7-figure deal with a national tech corporation. My phone buzzes, interrupting the cheers. It's my father. I give my team a quick 1-minute sign and step out onto the balcony, breathing in the warm Texas night. Hello? Adelaide. My father's voice was a screech of pure panic and fury. What the hell is going on? We are standing outside your apartment, and the damn key won't work. I took a sip of my wine. Oh, really? Don't you? Oh, really me. Some couple just opened the door. They said they've lived here for 2.5 years. What did you do with your apartment? It's not my apartment anymore, Dad, I said, my voice as calm as if I were discussing the weather. I moved out a long time ago. I'm pretty sure I sent you an email about it. A dead, heavy silence fell. I could picture the scene perfectly. My father, frozen in that dingy hallway, phone pressed to his ear, his face draining of color. My mother, clutching Bea's arm, staring at him in confusion. And Bea, probably pouting, annoyed that her seamless plan had hit a snag. Where are you? My mother stammered, having obviously snatched the phone. This was it. The moment of truth. The moment I had been waiting 3 years for. Not a fiery confrontation, not a bitter tirade. Just a simple, cold, declarative fact with the destructive power of a wrecking ball. I'm in Austin, Mom, I said. I graduated with my MBA, a 4.0 GPA. I also started my own consulting firm, Viridian Analytics. In fact, I'm about to step into a board meeting, so I can't talk long. We'll catch up later. I didn't wait for a reply. I ended the call. I stood there for a long moment, watching the city lights twinkle like scattered diamonds on black velvet. My phone began to vibrate incessantly with calls and texts, but I'd already switched it to silent. I didn't feel the glee I thought I would. There was no triumphant smirk. Instead, there was a profound sense of peace, a final, quiet release. The sweetest revenge wasn't making them hurt, it was making their existence irrelevant to my happiness. They had handed my sister the key to an empty apartment, a symbol of the emptiness of our relationship. They didn't know I had already left, not just the apartment, but the role they had cast for me. I had built a new house, and they didn't even have the address. The days that followed were a hurricane of desperate attempts at contact, tearful voicemails from my mother, angry emails from my father, even texts from Bea, for the first time not asking for anything, just a series of question marks. They wanted answers. They wanted an explanation. But I didn't owe them one. I finally responded a month later, when the storm had passed. Not with a call, but with a letter, written on my company's official letterhead. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm writing this not to place blame, but to offer clarity. For years, I lived a part that was written for me. The reliable daughter, the responsible sister, the solid rock for everyone to lean on. I accepted that role because I thought it was the only way to earn your love. I was wrong. Rocks aren't loved, they are used. My reliability wasn't cherished, it was assumed. I realized I was waiting for a validation that was never going to come from people who were incapable of giving it. The phone call about B moving into my apartment was the final catalyst. You weren't just offering up my space, you were revealing that you had no idea about my life, no interest in my accomplishments, and saw my very home as a utility for someone else. So, I chose to leave. I wasn't running from you, I was running toward myself. I went to Austin, I studied, I worked harder than you can imagine, I failed, and I got back up. I have built a life, a career, and a chosen family of people who see me, who value me, and who celebrate with me. I am not the Adelaide you knew. I am no longer anyone's backup plan. I am the architect of my own life. I love you, in the way a daughter loves her parents, but I have finally learned to love myself more. Sincerely, Adelaide Morgan. Founder, CEO, Veridian Analytics. I don't know how they reacted to that letter. I don't really need to. Our relationship, if it is ever to be rebuilt, will have to be on a new foundation, one of respect and truth. Last year, I did one final thing to close that chapter of my life. I used a portion of my company's profits to establish a scholarship at my alma mater. It's called the Adelaide Morgan Resilience Scholarship, designated specifically for first-generation students from unsupportive backgrounds who are fighting to build their own dream. It was the elixir I brought back from my journey, turning my private pain into a public opportunity for others. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I still think of them. There's no anger anymore, no bitterness, just a soft, gentle sadness for what could have been. But then I look around my home, at the awards on my shelf, at the thank you emails from my scholarship recipients, and I know this. You cannot choose the family you are born into, but you absolutely have the power to choose who you become and the family you build. My story isn't a story of revenge, it's a story of reclamation. It's proof that the most powerful statement of self-worth isn't always a loud declaration, but sometimes it's the quiet act of packing your bags, locking the door, and never looking back. Because sometimes, the only way to be truly seen is to disappear, only to re-emerge, dazzling and whole, in a world of your own making. Philosophical lessons. From Adelaide's journey, we can draw deep and valuable lessons, not just for those who feel undervalued, but for anyone on the path of self-discovery and self-actualization. True worth is forged internally, not granted. Externally, Adelaide spent much of her life waiting for external validation from her family, believing her achievements would earn her love and respect. Her greatest lesson was realizing that one's value is not measured by the applause of others. Self-worth, built on effort, resilience, and self-respect, is the only foundation for true happiness and success. Silence can be the most powerful statement. In a noisy world, we often believe we must shout to be heard. Adelaide proved the opposite. Instead of engaging in futile arguments, she chose silence and action. Her quiet departure and the new life she built had more impact than any accusation ever could. It forced those who took her for granted to confront the void she left and the truth of their own roles in her story. A chosen family can fulfill the needs a biological family cannot. The story highlights the critical importance of building a support network of people who genuinely believe in and uplift you. Mentors like Dr. Finch and friends like Chloe provided Adelaide with the validation and affection her family was unable to give. It's a reminder that love and belonging can be found in many places, and we have the power to choose the people we call family. Transform pain into fuel and disadvantage into an advantage. Adelaide did not let her family's unjust treatment destroy her. Instead, she channeled it into the fuel for her ambition. Every careless word, every act of neglect, became another brick in the foundation of her empire. Pain can be a prison, or it can be the forge that tempers us into something stronger. The choice is ours. The sweetest revenge is a life well lived. Adelaide's ultimate goal wasn't to get even. Her goal was freedom and self-actualization. Her incredible success was a byproduct of that journey. The story teaches that, instead of focusing on hurting those who hurt you, focus on building a life so magnificent that their existence no longer affects you. That is the ultimate victory. The personal journey can create social value. By establishing a scholarship, Adelaide transformed her personal story into a meaningful legacy, providing opportunities for others in similar situations. This shows that as we heal and overcome our own struggles, we gain the strength and empathy to help others. The hero's return is not just about personal transformation, but about the gift they bring back to their community.